Ladies and gentlemen, it's a huge honor for me to sit here this evening and welcome you guys to the first episode of 2025. It's crazy to think how fast and quickly time has flown. But yeah, we got to start off. This is going to be an incredible special podcast for me. A number of reasons. Firstly, it's my first podcast since we reached over 3 million downloads. So, from myself and the whole crew, I just want to say thank you so much for the incredible support, guys. Honestly, it's kind of overwhelming. If I looked in my first episode of the podcast was back in 2017, and we kind of missed the ball. We weren't continuous from there on, and we kind of really got into the groove thanks to COVID. But since then, it's been a learning curve. I've honestly been overwhelmed with the amount of support. But with that being said, of course, there's only one thing I ever ask of you guys is that if you are listening to this, no matter on what any platform, Carbon TV, YouTube, across the board, wherever it may be, if you guys wouldn't mind just subscribing to the channel, drop in a couple of comments and really just get involved, and every little bit helps. It all helps for the algorithm and all this fancy stuff that I'm still trying to wrap my head around and forever evolving as we go on. But for me, it's those small things that have mattered over the past couple of years growing the podcast, and I couldn't have done it without you guys. So for myself, I just want to take this opportunity and thank each and every single one of you guys listening to this podcast. It's a humbling experience. I want to thank you, and yeah, what an incredible way to kick off a new year. I know a couple of years ago when I reached 2 million, it had a similar sort of feeling, but to get another extra million downloads it's been incredible. So we're now on the 6th of January, and I'm sitting in my studio in South Africa, and I'm kind of thinking to myself, wait, but hang on, this feels a little bit unfamiliar. For the past, behalf COVID, for the last 10 years, I've been going to these convention shows down in the States, Dallas Safari Club, SCR, Houston, wherever it may be. And all of a sudden, this year, I'm sitting here in my studio recording a podcast about this upcoming shows, which is a little bit strange for me, but yeah, for all good reasons. The birth of my daughter happened on Friday, on the 3rd of January, so hence why I am still in the country, and unfortunately won't be attending any of the shows this season. However, we will still be making our way over to the United States. We've got some exciting hunting trips lined up towards the end of the year, and I'm really looking forward to that one. We'll get into that as the year progresses. We've got a jam-packed hunting season coming up, and I'm really looking forward to that one. So with that being said, 6th of January, of course, what have we got to touch on? What is the first episode we're going to get out of the way? It's the show episode. Now, normally in the past, I've had Pat come on to the show after we've experienced ACI and what his take has been. But we're going to do it a little bit differently this time. Like I mentioned earlier, I've been on the show. Well, I've been to the shows for the past 10 years. Back in, I think, 2013 was my first show. And like I said, I've been going every single year except for COVID. And it's been an overwhelming experience. I've experienced the full range. I've experienced the floor. Last year, I was fortunate enough to attend the shows, not from an exhibitor point of view, but more from just a personal growth point of view, walking around, meeting greets, and it was a awesome experience. The pressure was completely off. We weren't selling hunts; we were just there to experience it from a different perspective. So this is me. I've realized over the past couple of years, a lot of the guys, it's a very overwhelming experience. I must admit, when you arrive at the shows, you kind of get. I got a little bit flustered because there were so many things I wanted to do in such short little time. I mean, we were in Nashville for 2 days, we were in Dallas for 2 days, Houston for a day. So it really. We didn't manage to touch base with everything that we wanted to do, wanted to see people to go and introduce ourselves to, meet and greets and all this sort of stuff. So I decided, well, you know what, let me script this out. Let me sit down for the next couple of days. This was just after Christmas. And let me look at it from two different perspectives and really get the understanding about what really goes on behind these things. Now, like I said, I've experienced it for the past 10 years as an exhibitor, and last year I had the fortunate opportunity to attend it from a completely different angle. So the podcast today is all about my personal experiences, everything that I would recommend myself, not anyone else, myself, recommend, questions to ask, people to go and see, what sort of outfitters are you guys going to look for, just to make your show experience a little bit easier, because I can definitely understand how overwhelming it can get. So, with over 200 outfitters to choose from, I like to call it the safari blur. A lot of the time this has happened. You want to go and see your specific outfitter. You get there, the booth is jam-packed full of people. You never really get a chance to touch base and have a chat to him. And this is the safari blues, because you'll end up making rational decisions, quick decisions on the spot, because you're very limited when it comes to time. Half your questions go unanswered. You walk away with a package that doesn't really meet your expectations. This is just a step-by-step guide through so that you guys can process and choose in the right outfitter for your needs, means, and your personality, because ultimately a lot of the shift has come from people wanting to experience South Africa from a hunting perspective, but as a whole, cultural uniqueness and all that sort of stuff. So choosing your outfitter not based on how many inches they can provide, but more about what sort of experience they can give you. So with that being said, I've decided that the best way is to have clear objectives going forward. And what do I mean by this? So I've divided this segment of the podcast into two different portfolios. So one, you'll have the outfitters. So when you go to these shows, prioritize outfitters and then prioritize purchases. So a lot of these exhibition shows and stuff like that, there's some really cool things. I mean, a lot of the reason why I went last year was to have a really cool look at some of the unique equipment that's out there, binoculars, harnesses, slings, whatever it may be. So how I've seen it is that a lot of guys, on their way to their specific outfitter, they'll get sidetracked by a booth that they've been wanting to see, or they've seen adverts on binoculars or whatever it may be, and they kind of get sidetracked. So have a clear objective. Mark outfitters and purchases, and only choose 2 outfitters. So do your prior research. If you have done that, if you have been to South Africa before, you're familiar with what the industry has to offer, have only 2 top priority outfitters. And I'll get into the reason why I explain on only 2. But you would have done your research. If you're a seasoned hunter coming out to Africa on numerous amounts of occasions, and this time you bring in your grandson, you bring in your wife, whoever it may be, you've done your research by this point, and you've got a preference of 2 outfitters. So make those guys your priority, and then your purchases as your leftover time. And what do I mean by leftover time? If you've seen your outfitters, then your purchases can follow after that. What often happens is that the guys get a little bit sidetracked, and like I said, your time in the booth becomes limited, and that way not only does the outfitter start pushing a different agenda so that he can carry on talking to other potential clients on the floor, but he'll also start losing a little bit of interest on the types of questions that you were wanting to ask. So we really don't want that to happen. So these are the top 5 questions. If you are a seasoned outfitter, a seasoned hunter coming out to South Africa, these are some of the top 5 questions that I recommend you asking. Specifically, if you are new to this game, if you are new to the exhibitions and stuff. And some of the key points is that I would recommend that you do is write this down on a piece of paper. There was a couple of years ago, one of my first exhibition shows that I went to, one of the clowns, an extremely pleasant guy, Matt, he rocked up at the booth and he had a A4 size piece of paper full of questions from top to bottom. And he never asked a single question. He just handed it over to the outfitter at the time, and he said, "Yeah, listen, these are my top priority questions that I would like you to answer. I can see you're busy. I'll come back to that." So that's a key thing. That's a key point I would like you guys to just to remember a little bit later on. So some of the top 5 questions, and I'm going to read them just so that I don't get a little bit sidetracked. What do you hunt? What area do you hunt? And how many species do you have to offer on your property? Do you assist with weapons or rifle hire? Are there extramural activities for non-hunters? Will we spend nights away from the main lodge on other properties? Can I contact my professional hunter beforehand? Okay, so let me break it down on each of these questions. And the reason why I recommend these is my top 5 questions to ask. What area do you hunt and how many species do you have to offer? If you guys are looking to come out to South Africa and experience a safari of a lifetime, I recommend, my personal opinion, is being able to see as much of the country as we possibly can. From the Eastern Cape, you get to go and see some of the incredible mountain ranges surrounding our beautiful areas, and within 2 hours you're at the Indian Ocean hunting specific spiral horn species or oribi or East Cape graceback, whatever it may be. So for me personally, that is something that you would want to prioritize going forward for your safari, and experience a little bit more of the different cultures. Go and experience the Zulu, the Xhosa, the Sotho cultures and all that sort of stuff. Then by all means ask those sort of questions, because you'll have a better understanding for preparation going forward. And then how many species do you have to offer? A lot of the time, and it links in with question number 4, a lot of the time the outfitters don't offer a full range of species. For instance, we can't offer inland or majority of the inland areas that I hunt, I can't offer a bushback. However, if I go down more towards the coast, that is where I get, and oftentimes we'll have to sleep over because bushback you're hunting early morning, late evening. So I'll always tell the guys that are hunting with me, pack a change of clothing for a night, and just bring along a little bit of extra cash. It's nice just to always look after the personal landowner that you guys are hunting on. Oftentimes the landowner won't take the tip, but it's good to tip the staff that are around there. For us as professional hunters and outfitters, these guys are looking after these animals for the clients that are coming out to enjoy them. So it's just nice. It's a little bit of gratitude just to say thank you. So that's just a heads up. Those questions are important because a lot of guys now, especially in today's time, don't carry a lot of cash around with them. So it's important to have those sort of questions, because I know it does get a little bit difficult when all of a sudden you've rocked up, you've driven 2 hours, you're spending the night over, and your PH turns around to you and say, listen, Bob, do you have an extra $20 or whatever it may be, just to tip Safiso over there because he's been working so hard, and just to say thank you for allowing us to hunt on the property. So a lot of the guys get caught off guard with that because they leave the money back at the lodge, locked up in the safe and all that sort of stuff. So ask these sort of questions, become prepared, and understand a little bit more about how our hunting culture has evolved to accommodate a lot of the foreign hunting. Do you assist with rifle or rifle hire? This is a very important one. Now, my personal experiences, I deal with a company, Deirdre. She runs African Sky Guest House. It's close to the Johannesburg airport, and she has been absolutely brilliant with getting my clients' rifles into the country, and it's been a flawless experience, let me say that. The clients contact them with all their rifle details. She applies through the Pretoria magistrates or wherever they get the permits from, and however, it's a seamless process. They meet my clients at the airport. If they have got layovers, they'll 10-1 stay at their guest house, and they walk them through the process of receiving their rifles and making sure just everything is just hunky-dory. However, if that's not something, if that's not a risk you want to take, especially if you've got layovers through a lot of the European and even some of the Arabic countries like Qatar, Dubai. I need to brush up on that, and I'm hoping to do an episode on traveling specifically, because I'm not 100% sure how the firearm system works through the Arabic airlines. I know there's been a lot of connecting flights going through Qatar, Dubai, Singapore. I'm not 100% sure about that with weapons. I have flown through those areas with a bow personally, so I know what that's like, and there's never been any sort of issues. Yeah, but with that being said, I'll touch a little bit, touch more on the traveling side of things. But having these sort of companies and having your outfitter having that accessibility to rifle importation and all that sort of stuff, those questions get answered very, very quickly over a couple of emails, and it's kind of flawless. So ask those sort of questions. Make sure that these guys are linked and know what they're doing. So by the time that you get if you are bringing your special rifle to hunt a buffalo or whatever the case may be, it's a flawless experience. You're going to have, that's the last thing you really want to be worrying about. Or on the flip side, if this is your first safari coming out, you really don't want to have the hassle, and you want to utilize the lodged rifles, find out what is the daily fee on a rifle, how much are they charging you per bullet, because just understand that a lot of the time, these sort of things are hidden costs within the safari, and they can add up along the way. Extramural activities for non-hunters, that's pretty much self-explanatory. If you are bringing your wife around or somebody that's not hunting, we've got a beautiful and amazing country. We've got some exceptional outfitters out there that would love to take you around and show you some of the special activities we've got available here in the Eastern Cape. I can mention a few, from fishing to Addo Elephant Park, Bushman Cave, Bushman paintings, whatever your heart's desire, we've got it all. And find out a little bit more about that, because some people might not like fishing, they get seasick, they don't want to do that. So do a little bit of a deep dive into that and what sort of facilities they have to offer. Like I said, we will spend nights away from the main lodge more often than not. You'll find it very seldom that you will spend all your days at one particular lodge. I've seen it happen a couple of times, and like I said, there's some brilliant outfitters out there that can accommodate you for everything, but don't let that hinder on your experience. So, there are going to be guys that can't offer you the whole package right at that specific spot, but jump in the vehicle for 2 hours, go and see our beautiful countryside, go and see different parts of the country and stuff. That's all what it's all about, enjoying what South Africa has to offer. And then probably the most important point of it all, and this one hits home, and this is a very special one to me, and I can't wait to share a little bit more on it, is that can I contact my professional hunter before arrival? And there's a couple of main reasons for this, but the first one is your professional hunter has a responsibility to bring you a flawless experience. And the only way he's going to do that is if you and him can communicate on an extraordinary level. And a lot of the time, professional hunter will be collecting you at the airport. If this is not the case, you have already built up some sort of a relationship that when you arrive in the country, you feel secure that you've made contact with your professional hunter. You know what he's thinking. He knows what you're thinking. He understands that this is your first time, or if this is your third time, or whatever. Have you been shooting with sticks? What sort of caliber are you comfortable with? What sort of species are you hunting? Are there any other species that have to be applied for permits? That's a very important one. I've done an episode of the podcast on that. I'll do another one a little bit later on. But these sort of things just make the experience a whole lot easier. You need to understand that other than the outfitter, your professional hunter is your first line of defense, or your first line of attack, whatever it may be. Your professional hunter is doing everything. If you've got any sort of queries, your professional hunter is the guy to go to. If you're unsure of anything, your professional hunter is the guy to go to. If there's activities you want to do, your professional hunter is the one to go to. And if there are certain species that you want to chop and change on your list or add or whatever it may be, your professional hunter is the one you go to. He is the most important point of contact between you, the outfitter, and your exceptional experience. So, and I'm a little bit biased to the professional hunters because of my background, but it's thoroughly, thoroughly important. There have been situations, and this is very important to understand. There have been situations where outfitters will not allow you to contact your professional hunter prior to the time. And there's two main reasons for this. Number one, either they are nervous about your professional hunter contacting, because in our industry, there's been this huge bubble of blow-ups about poaching of clients. And it's something I wish I could eradicate. However, it's out of my control, and I'm not going to get any more anxiety over it. But number two, the outfitters, generally, what I've experienced over my 14 or 15 years as a professional hunter, a lot of the time you'll get paired on arrival, and that's not a good thing. There's a lot of time, and I've seen it more often than not, you get paired with conflicting personalities, guys that are not specified, or too shy to maybe talk to you, or the professional hunter is a little bit too bombastic for this sort of personality. So just make sure that those things are highlighted. Puts you at ease, puts a professional hunter at ease, and it makes your experience a hell of a lot more enjoyable. So like I said, guys, write these questions down. If you've got more, by all means, add it to it. And write these questions down, because more often than not, you'll arrive at these shows and you get a beautiful little, like a laptop bag type vibe. And then you've got pens and papers, there's cards and all that sort of stuff. So write these questions down, and at the bottom of the piece of paper, put your contact details there. Put your cell phone number and your email address. And at the bottom of that, just write, when you got a chance, please call me. What this does is it allows the outfitter, that a lot of the time I've seen this happen, is that you, out of the corner of your eye, you'll be chatting to somebody and you'll see that there's guys that are wanting to interact with the booth, but you can see that the booth is full. There's people talking left, right, and center. They might be talking about their past experiences at the lodge, or they might actually be wanting to purchase a hunt. You never really know. It could just be general conversations about certain species that might be hanging up in the booth or whatever it may be. And more often than not, you walk past and you get a little bit overwhelmed and you're like, this booth is full. Well, let's go on to the next one. And then you'll end up having conversations. There's two main theories behind this, and there was a good friend of mine that actually pointed it out quite nicely. He said, you look at this and you say, okay, well, if this booth is busy, then there's that burnt toast effect, right? The burnt toast effect is that I left the toast in the toaster too long, but if I hadn't, I might have been in a car accident or any of that sort of stuff. So he's saying on the burnt toast effect, you might have gone with this outfitter, but you ended up choosing this one, and that was the ideal one for you. That's fine. By all means, these sort of things happen. Lady luck might be on your side, and that's the way you want to go. However, being prepared, number one, it sticks in the mind of an outfitter for a very, very long time, and 9 times out of 10, I can guarantee you now, there are the shows come in waves. One for a couple of hours, the booth is jam-packed, and then it dies down completely, and then it's jam-packed, and then it dies down completely. So make sure that if you get to that point where the booth is just a little bit busy at the moment, let me go and take a breather and come back. By the second time, if the booth is still busy, hand in the note of questions with all your contact details on. 10 out of 10 times, I'm telling you right now, those outfitters would land up phoning that number at the bottom and say, hey John, Pete, whoever it is, please pop around to the booth. There's nothing on the go at the moment, so pop around and let's have a chat. And this is why I say prioritize your outfitters first before you go on to your purchases, because once you get onto your purchases, if by so means one of the 2 outfitters that you have highlighted does get a gap and calls you, at least you can prioritize that and say it's the guys where you buying your new rifle or whatever it may be. I'll be with you in the next 15 minutes and head along to the outfitter. And that's a very, very important one. So This is where it gets a little bit tricky for me, and this is where I have almost no experience. But from what I have spoken about, especially guys that selected the outfitting company that I used to work for on their very first show, this is some of the opinions or the perceptions I've taken from their experience of that. So you go into these SCI conventions, a lot of the time clients arrive at these conventions without any sort of background on particular outfitters. They're like, oh cool, well, you know what, I want to go to Africa. Or they might be at a silent auction, and there's a cool sable that comes up. I'll get into show specials a little bit later, but there's a cool sable that comes up. It's at $2,200. Let me bid. Let me throw $2,800 at it, and you'll end up winning it. And you have no real background about outfitters. So this is the reason why I say choose 2 outfitters right at the start. Prioritize 2 outfitters. So take your chance, walk around the show, and these are the 5 main key points that I would highlight or suggest you look out for when you are at these shows. Number 1 is presentation of the booth and the representatives, PHs, outfitters, whatever. Alignment with your hunting style and preferences. We'll get into that as we go. I'll explain these points like I did last time. Personal attention to detail. Reputable association with taxidermies, rifle importers, or travel agents even. Location and species diversity. So number 1, presentation of booth and representatives. Remember guys, this is a big misconception. Size at the shows does not matter. A lot of the outfitters prioritize these massive sized booths, and they're beautiful, they really are, but a lot of the time it's just all for show. I like to call it the swinging dick competition. It's not about that. A lot of these outfitters, and rightly so, they're extremely successful in the industry. They run an exceptional establishment, and of course they want to get to these shows and they want to show off a little bit. They want to show superiority, which is all, by all means, that's cool. I really don't mind. It's a good vision for the hunting industry, and I kind of enjoy it. I really do. I prefer a bigger booth, leather couches, beautiful bomas, animals behind. It just creates such a beautiful vibe. But that's not all the be all and end all of it. You might get to a little one-man show and he's an exceptional outfitter PH. He really knows what he's done. He's extremely passionate about that. He's there in his two-tone khakis, or even sometimes short pants, Solomon tackies, or even his Courtney boots, whatever it may be. And he's just there to chat to the avid hunter, and he just wants you guys to come out and have a really good time. And a lot of these bigger guys, they want the same sort of thing, but they want to spoil you along the way. So 5-star cuisines, and you know, it's a lot of them can deliver on some beautiful experiences, but so too can the one-man show. So if that's what you are kind of looking for, if you guys are a rustic hunter, you love to walk and stalk and walk the mountains and really not too phased about the pickup or the Michelin type meals you get in the evenings and stuff like that, well then kick over the stone on the one-man shows. They often, more often than not, are really some exceptional, reputable outfitters. I know a lot of them of mine are mates in the industry. It's taken them a hell of a lot of effort to get to where they are, and don't overlook that. And that's where it leads into number 2, alignment with your hunting style and preferences. If you are wanting to go over to the shows and have a luxury getaway with your wife and your kids and all that sort of stuff, then by all means, there are a number of outfitters that cater for that needs. If you're a guy that's quite happy to go and camp for 2 days in the mountains chasing fall rhubarb or cliffspring or whatever it may be, there's guys that are going to be able to accommodate you on that. I'm not saying every single one can't accommodate on either or. They can both accommodate on both. There's some single men outfitting PH establishments there with some incredible chefs, and they can give you the Michelin style meals and all that sort of stuff, and the experiences. So really, the more time you get to spend with these guys, I've always, from what I've learned from my grandfather, my dad, presentation is a very big decision maker for me. So when I look at a guy, I'm the type of guy, shorts, khaki shirt, Solomon tackies, or track shoes, or whatever, maybe as comfortable as possible, a nice little trucker hat, neat, presentable, relaxed, and chilled. That's the type of guy I am. Jeans sometimes on the chillier days, but that's who I am. That's how I roll. I mean, when I'm in the bush, I wear shorts, khaki shirts, and a lot of camo, obviously jackets and trucker caps and stuff. I'm not there to put on a false presentation of myself, because when people come out and hunt with me, I want to give them the experience of that I would want to give myself, and that's very important to me. It might not be important to every single outfitter out there, but there are guys that handle those sort of situations that way. But the only way you're going to know is on your personal preference. So if you're looking for a guy, jacket, tie, button-up shirts and stuff, cool. I'm not saying that they're bad outfitters. I think there's some incredible outfitters that do things that way. By all means, go along. Don't be intimidated by it. Go and have your conversations. Hand them the questions that we mentioned earlier. It's important. It's important to engage with as many people as possible. And the biggest misconception about South African outfitters at these shows, the biggest misconception, especially the bigger entities, is that wording this could get me into a lot of trouble, so I'm just going to take my time. But the biggest misconception is that don't be intimidated by the bigger guys or the smartest, the smarter looking guys. A lot of, and I never realized this until probably about a year ago. The misconception that a lot of people had on the guys with the jacket and the ties and all that, oh no, well, they must be expensive. They must be. It's not the case all the time. There's just good people out there that want to, my personal preference is short pants and a khaki shirt and a pair of Solomon tackies. Their preference is feeling good, looking neat, arriving for business. And more often than not, they're not the most expensive people. They're just good guys that just like to dress like that and put on a great presentation. Go and have a chat to them. What do you have to lose? And so get that perception out of it. Bigger is not always better. Smarter is not always more expensive. So just remember that. Like I said, personal attention to detail. Are the brochures nice and neat? They're not handing out these one-page flyers with some sloppy show specials on. Reputable association with taxidermists. There's some exceptional taxidermists out there. Make sure, because after the safari, that's a very important point to turn back to, is, are my trophies safe? Am I going to get well looked after? Because you have no control. Once you get on that flight and you land in America, this is where your relationship with your professional hunter comes in, your outfitter, your taxidermist is very, very important. Because if you've got a relationship with your professional hunter or your outfitter, they're always going to be the ones that are going to back you because they want you to be happy. So having a reputable taxidermist, rifle importer, of course, because your rifle is your baby, you want to make sure that it's arriving here unscathed. And it's actually arriving here, it's not getting lost somewhere. And then more often than not, I've seen it a couple of times. I can't remember which. I know it was at Vegas the one year. A lot of the outfitters had travel agents in their book, which is quite a cool one. But I think with technology today, a lot of clients can get away with booking their own stuff. It might not always be the safest, especially on your first trip. I would recommend maybe going through an agent. However, it's not rocket science. I mean, you can definitely be able to deal with it and navigate it, especially with the technology we've got. And like I said, building a relationship with your outfitter and your professional hunter, a lot of the times they'll hear from other clients, oh, Qatar was a breeze, we brought our rifles through, whatever it may be. Location and species diversity. I'm biased to the Eastern Cape, so I'm not going to comment too much on this one. But if you guys are looking for an incredible walking, stalking experience, mountainous terrain, rolling hills, coastal hunting, Eastern Cape is definitely your place to go. If Bushveld is more your sort of style, or Kalahari style, Northern Cape, Limpopo, that sort of stuff, head along over there. They all cater for for your specific needs, and I'm pretty sure if you're a guy that doesn't like to sit in a blind over a watering hole, the guys in Limpopo will be able to accommodate you on some really special walking and stalking environments. So keep that in mind. Yeah, so which leads me to another question, and it was asked to me. I was actually sent this question last year at one of the banquets, and a lot of the time I heard, head along to this booth number, they're running a show special on sable or buffalo. It's a very common thing. And the guys run along and they head over to these booths, and there's a special that is too good to be true. Now again, if it is too good to be true, more often than not it is. Depending on the time of year you planning to go out, if it's earlier, by all means capitalize on the opportunity. If it's a little bit later in the year, past your May, June, July, I will really recommend you considering holding back on that deal. There's a couple of reasons for that. A lot of the outfitters, let me rephrase that. A minority of the outfitters put these show specials out there without any cap on them. From my personal experiences and what I've seen, a very small group of outfitters do that. And what happens is it damages the market within the show, because everyone sees these crazy prices that are being sold for sable and buffalo and all that sort of stuff. And more often than not, it pushes the other outfitters to drop their prices. Meanwhile, these other outfitters, there's no cap on that species. So if they sell 50 sable in the show, it doesn't really happen. It's a little bit of an over-exaggeration. Say 20 sable. But the outfitter back home, he's only got 12 sable to shoot this year. If you're thinking conservation-wise, that is where the naughty side of the industry happens, is that guys will overpromise, underdeliver. So when those 12 big sable bulls are all shot out, then they start pushing the boundaries on some immature sable that come out. I'm not saying all outfitters do this, a very small portion of them do. And that is why I'm saying, if it's your first outfitter, you don't have too much background on them, rather play it safe and just stay clear of the show specials. It's a very, very, it's something that can make and break a safari. Don't get me wrong. Please don't get me wrong. I've seen a number of show specials out there that the guys take, they get back home, and they have an incredible time. I'm not saying that all outfitters at the shows are taking chances. I'm saying there are very few that do. But more often than not, it's the very few that put these ridiculous prices out there, and they hurt the market. They hurt the industry, because a lot of the outfitters are then forced to not match, but drop their pricing on those specific animals, even though they conservatively looking after their herd, and they're doing so with conservation in mind. So just keep that in mind. That is just something I wanted to touch on, because a show special for me is so dangerous. I've seen it. I've personally been involved with a lot of bad deals when it comes to that. And I wouldn't want anyone, especially on their first safari, to go and make a mistake like that and fall short, especially on a beautiful sable or a buffalo. and you get there and it's an immature bull on a buffalo case. The bosses boil away. There's no bosses at all. So just be very, very careful when it comes to that sort of stuff. And confront the outfitter about it. So ask him straight out, how many do you have? And normally, I don't think it's rocket science to figure out if he's operating off 20,000 acres and he's got 60 sable bulls to shoot in the year. I mean, I don't think it's rocket science to understand that might be a little bit far-fetched, and you might be staring down a dark barrel to choose from. Which leads me to my next point, is acreage. I'm going to refer back to the podcast I got in a lot of trouble with, where I referred back to it with Sean Kogut from Salt Lake Outdoors. A very small minority of outfitters out there are like used car salesmen. And what I mean by this is that there are a lot of guys there that will inflate what is actually there to hunt. And acreage is a big one, and species. A lot of the guys, and free range, I hate the word free range, but a lot of guys will inflate their acreage, and I don't know why. I haven't kind of figured it out, and I'll tell you why I know this. Because when I was working for an outfitter, that was one of the things we had to do, was that, well, we've got 6 different properties across 3 different provinces. So our general hunting space is 50,000 acres. And when you look back at it, your general hunting space at the time was only really 15,000 acres. So you've inflated this. Yes, maybe you own or you've got hunting rights over 50,000 acres. But realistically, on a single safari, you're not going to hunt all of that, because you're hunting across 3 different provinces. And I've seen this happen on a number of occasions with different outfitters. And this is where it gets a little bit shady for me. I don't like it. I don't think it proves a point to anyone. And I don't think it's a great sales tactic. Don't get me wrong, there are some outfitters out there with massive amounts of land in one particular area, or they've got hunting rights to neighbors and all this sort of stuff. However, what is owned is a completely different story to what they put down on pen and paper. So just keep wary of that. Now, it's going to be a difficult conversation to rock up at the booth and say, well, listen, pull up a Google Earth map of your property and let me go back and research it. That's not going to happen. I understand. It's unrealistic. However, just understand that these are one of the things that if a guy's continuously pointing out, oh, we've got 50,000 acres to hunt, or we've got 100,000 acres, whatever it may be, just understand it might be a little bit inflated. And that's where the used car salesman thing comes in. I got into a lot of trouble for that one there, but a very small minority of outfitters are like that. So just please be careful. And that's all don't get me wrong, there's some incredible guys out there. Just take a look at that. just keep your eye out for that. But basic things, good presentation on their brochures, business cards, they always leave a lasting impression. When clients walk past and they grab those business cards or they grab those brochures, chuck them in their laptop bag, refer back to them when they get home, it always leaves a lasting impression. And don't be shy. Walk up to the table, pick up price lists, pick up brochures. The more you've got, the more information you've got about those particular outfitters is most important. Because when you get home, it's very difficult when you're at the show, or even when you go back to your hotel that night. It's difficult because you're always going out for drinks or going out for supper. But it's difficult to do a little bit of research with when it comes to Instagram and stuff. If you haven't made a decision, because that's another point I'll get to a little bit later in closing. But if you haven't made a decision, just go back, and go and do a little bit of research. Log on to YouTube, log on to Instagram, and just go and have a look and see what these guys have to offer. So choosing the correct outfitter really just boils down to personal preference, right? If you personally get along well with the people, 9 times out of 10, they're great guys. They're going to give you an experience of a lifetime. More often than not, they are not going to forget about you. So when you rock back up there, they're going to treat you like royalty. We've got South Africa is home to some of the most Is it hospitality? South Africa is home to some of the friendliest, happiest, welcoming people you have ever met. And that I can confidently say, that is an experience in its own. Besides the hunting, you're going to see a number of different species. You're going to see a number of incredible animals, people out there. But our hospitality is top notch. So that alone, like I said, is an experience on its own. So yeah, guys, that brings an end to the show season, the show episode, I must say. I referred a lot to on my iPad and all that sort of stuff because I prepped quite a bit for this podcast episode because, like I said, I got into a little bit of trouble last year because I didn't word things correctly. But over the years, I've experienced some really cool things. And a lot of the time, your safari experience starts at those shows. And it's important to leave there with an experience you can look back at and say, shit, you know what, I'm going to do that again next year. Or maybe Brad will enjoy a show like that and it'll give him a little bit of peace of mind. Because a lot of the time, and I never realized this until last year. I mean, I've been a professional hunter now for, 15, is it 15? It's 15 years this year. I've been a professional hunter now for 15 years. And last year was the first year. I mean, you kind of get it. Like, you're aware of it, but you never really take it seriously. How first timers coming over to South Africa are legitimately scared about traveling to this country. But once they have an experience of a lifetime, and they leave here saying, "Oh shit, you know what? I should have done that earlier." But it starts at those shows. It starts at SCI. It starts at Dallas Safari Club because those are important. That's an important key to making sure that you select the correct safari company for your personal needs and your personal preference. And that's the important part about this whole thing. These questions and answers and all these little guideline tips and stuff, it's just merely a guideline tip. But at the end of the day, when you rock up at that booth and you have a conversation with that guy, you'll immediately know, your judgment, your gut feel will immediately know whether this is the right or the wrong way to go. Leave pricing, leave all of that stuff out of it. Make sure you link up with the outfitter that you feel most comfortable with, because there's like I said, there's more than 200 outfitters at these shows, I'm sure. And 99% of them are incredible outfitters. You're very seldom going to pick a bad one. So go out there, make sure that the experience is well worth it. Choose two great outfitters and ping pong ball between the two of them. And ultimately, make sure that you leave the show making sure that you are satisfied with what you got out of it and you're satisfied with who you saw, because that's important. And like I said, your safari starts there. Whether you're booking this year for next year, this year for this year, this year for 2 years' time, your safari starts there, because it's back and forth communication with your professional hunter and your outfitter. You guys are constantly talking, planning, making sure that when you do arrive, it's a flawless experience. So guys, I hope that this was helpful in some way. I hope it was interesting. And I really enjoyed doing a lot of research, referring back to a lot of my past experiences from the show. I've had some incredible times in America, especially at these exhibition shows. It really is something special. And if you guys haven't yet, I would highly recommend you experience it at least once, just at least once, whether it's Dallas Safari Club or SCI. Those are some of the big ones. There's a lot of smaller guys out there, Houston, the Great American Outdoor. A lot of these guys run some exceptional exhibitions, and yeah, doing it is an experience on its own. So yeah, like I said, we've got a jam-packed season ahead of us. The 6th of January, I think this is the earliest I've ever started my podcasting season, but I'm looking forward to it because I've got a couple of great guests. Next week we head down to the Port Elizabeth side. We've got a couple of great guests that side, and hopefully I get to upload a little bit more interviews and guest introductions onto my podcast, which has been a fan favorite from last year. So yeah, once again, if you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications. If you enjoyed this episode, drop a thumbs up, comment, interact with it. Like I said, it all helps for the algorithm. But yeah, if you are, happy hunting. Until then, stay safe, stay blessed, stay humble. We'll catch up with you guys soon.